Special guest this evening is Derek Tyler. And Derek Tyler has began studying the topics of UFOs and alien contact in 1967 at the age of 6 when he had his first UFO sighting. It was not to be his last. He has had at least 5 more sightings, 2 of which involved military aircraft. One of these sightings lasted for over 40 minutes, and in the other, the craft approached within about 40 feet of him. In addition, he is both an alien and military abductee who was able to retain a number of very specific and highly detailed memories of events which took place during several of his abductions. He has also interviewed well over 3,000 abductees and was an acquaintance of the late Budd Hopkins, who was at the time considered to be the world's top civilian authority, the subject of abductions. In the mid-1990s, Mr. Tyler decided to open up a discussion group on an internet relay chat network. The group quickly drew in many interested people and within just a couple of months was the largest and most popular channel of its type in the world. It was through this discussion group that he was eventually noticed and contacted by a number of individuals from deep within the covert world of black ops who had worked with aliens or their technology during the course of their regular duties. They were kind and generous enough to eventually meet with him privately, at which time they delivered a number of military-style briefings to him and educated him about many things he would have otherwise never had a way to learn. Derek Tyler is currently the administrator of a discussion group on Facebook called UFOs and Alien Contact and has been studying all things alien-related for about half a century. Far from having all the answers, he is acutely aware of the limitations of his knowledge and understands clearly just how many things about aliens remain unknown to us at the present time. He's preparing to release his first book on the subject, one that seems destined to break new ground and garner a lot of public attention. It is entitled Alien Contact, The Difficult Truth, and it is unlike anything you have ever seen before in terms of manuscripts within the UFO genre. He is friendly and helpful, possessed of a keen intellect and an outrageous sense of humor, but at the same time has the ability to deliver scathing critiques when the situation calls for it. He brings a unique combination of study and personal experience to the subject of alien contact and is considered to be one of the world's most accomplished researchers and consultants within what can certainly be called the most profound and crucial topic of our time. And please welcome Derek to the show this evening. Hello there, Derek.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you on board tonight. It's quite a bio you have there. You've been everywhere.
Let me tell you, that's a resume that I could have never dreamed of having in my wildest dreams. It just somehow it fell on my shoulders and fell into my lap through a combination of a lot of research and being in the wrong place at the wrong time, I guess.
Right. It seems
like a number
of
occasions.
Yeah, it seems like you've converted anything potentially negative into a positive, which is good.
I've tried to, but it's been quite a long road. The thing that I've learned is that the more you study and the more information you accumulate, the better you understand the overall situation, the scarier it gets.
That's very true. There are many levels to it. I know that much. But sometimes just going into some of these levels takes the boogeyman out of the scenery to some degree. But there are insidious programs happening across the board here, and I'm sure that you're familiar with quite a few of them. So I was going to ask you a little bit. We can dive into certain topics pertaining to actually the Budd Hopkins. If you'd like to go into the area of what you were actually doing in alignment with the Budd Hopkins work, I think that would be a very good place to start. You want to start there?
Sure. I got acquainted with him when I was running that IRC channel that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. I didn't know him, we weren't close friends or anything, but I talked to his assistant, whose name was John Velez, probably, 3-4 days a week, I suppose, for a while. And we would occasionally send people to Budd who requested regressive hypnosis. I dealt with a lot of abductees then, too. And Budd was into the regressive hypnosis thing, and I didn't have a way to do it for him. By the way, I don't recommend that for people myself. I think it's generally quite a bad idea because you don't want to remember what happens to you during an abduction. And thank your lucky stars that you don't remember it and let it go. That's what I would say. Budd was a very, he's obviously done a lot for, as far as popularizing the subject of abductions. He was very sincere. He was always nice to me. Unfortunately, he had a major blind spot, which was that he didn't believe a word about government conspiracies. He didn't think that the government had anything to do with aliens. And so he refused to listen to any discussion of it ever from anyone. And nobody could talk him out of that. And unfortunately, it caused him to miss about half the picture. But I appreciate the work that he did, and he was always real good to me.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. That's really interesting. So what was his interest then? If he didn't want to believe it was anything pertaining to like a government program or anything like that, what was his real interest in that whole area?
Well, his opinion was that, and correctly, that we have alien intruders as well as friendly alien visitors. A friend does not ever abduct you in the middle of the night out of your bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
A friendly extraterrestrial being would invite you on board their ship if they wanted to, but they're not going to take you in the middle of the night and perform surgeries on you and then pretend that's friendship. That's a
Right.
capital crime is what it is. And so he felt that we were being basically invaded by these ETs, but that the government had no general interaction with them, which is incorrect.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I can't wait for your book to come out, by the way. I can tell it's going to be good just by the way you're communicating. So,
It's ready to go, but I intended to publish it a couple of weeks ago, but then I found out Mars is in retrograde, and I don't know much, but I know enough not to argue with the ancient god of war, so I'm going to wait until the 1st of July.
that's my ruling planet. No, I bet you can tell. No, I was kidding. Well, that's interesting. Well, July is a good time to release it also, so that'd be great. Yeah, without a doubt there. So let's kind of inform people insofar as abductions go. What is a symptom of an abduction?
Well, there are a number of indicators. Some of them are more important than others. Some that I consider to be the most telling, the most reliable are, one that's very common is sleep paralysis. You wake up in bed and you can't really move your legs at all. That's commonly reported. Mm-hmm. Another is, and this happened to me, I had a tendency to burn out streetlights whenever I'd get near them. Mm. And this is quite a common thing. Sometimes I would burn out 3 streetlights in a single block. Even just from driving past them or walking near them, they would just flash out, and they apparently alter our electromagnetic aura somehow, and it causes streetlights to go out, and it can cause things like digital watches, computers can burn out really quickly. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always happen to people, but it's pretty common. Another thing that's fairly common is that people will remember when they were children seeing like pirates or robbers near their bed at night, or monsters coming out of their closet or something. That's a pretty common symptom because, as it turns out, the reptilians have access to portal technology, and they love to portal into people's closets and come out from there to do whatever they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Another thing is dreams of aliens specifically, or dreams of being levitated or floating are a good indicator, because people can dream of flying, but there's no reason to dream of being levitated. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people will dream of animals with large glowing eyes, such as wolves or owls or something. And those are screen memories to replace the memory of large-eyed grays, which actually took you. They put screen memories in place a lot of times. You know, another thing that happens a lot of times is people will wake up with a bloody nose, or they will wake up with scratches occasionally, or sometimes they'll have little scoops of flesh taken out of their arm or somewhere on their body in a triangular shape. Mm-hmm. And that's also a good indicator.
Mm-hmm. That's a great description right there. You know, I coming from the aspect of like multidimensional work and spirituality, I know that there are many people who just have charged auras who can literally do what you're talking about with switching lights on and off and being able to stop watches and things through their own natural electromagnetic field. And it's my impression that as we raise our vibrational state of consciousness, we attract more of these entities. Would you say that's yes or no?
I think that's right. I think that, and as a matter of fact, I have a couple friends who can do what you were just describing, and they have the ability to apparently loan their energy out to people nearby. One of them could move objects with her mind, and once I was near her and she said, "Try it, you can do it too." And for 10 minutes, I controlled every movement of a pendulum, back and forth, reverse direction, however I wanted, and it seemed easy, but it was her energy doing it. So yes,
interesting.
But the aliens are well aware of the astral levels. They operate in them very commonly. They have artificially enhanced psychic abilities, which allow them to go there with ease. And every time that we project a powerful emotion or a powerful vibration from our auras, it's like sending a flashlight into the darkness. They can see it, and it does draw attention.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense right there. It sounds like you also have a natural healing ability, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I I I try to, yeah.
Yeah, it just seems
I
like you
don't
do.
advertise that about myself, but
It's okay.
I seem to have a natural ability to be a telepathic receiver to a certain point too.
Well, that's great.
Once I saw this. Once I saw this channel or on television, it was that lady that channeled Ramtha, if you remember who that was,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the biggest hoax I've ever seen in my life. It was retarded, and I assumed that all channelers must be hoaxes. And one day I was going through some random book and I saw a method of trying channeling. And I said, well, that seems pretty easy. I'll give it a try. And I did, and it worked. And at first I didn't believe it. And I thought it was my subconscious mind or whatever. But every time I tried it, I kept getting pages and pages of stuff I didn't even understand. It was over my head.
Mm-hmm.
And one day it looked like a nonsense phrase, which I couldn't understand. And a few months went by and I said, that it might be Latin. I could look it up online and see if it is. And I looked it up and it was the Latin phrase that said, a seal of authority, a little book of truth.
Mm.
And so I don't know where those messages came from. I don't know anything about channeling, but that made me take it kind of a lot more seriously than I ever did before.
We have that natural ability. Well, once again, I think that does put us on the radar for interaction with any type of off-world species, plus putting us on the radar for covert military abductions. If they know you have an ability, they'll probably try to hijack it. I know they tried to do that with me in 2004, so yeah.
They seem to have the ability to know who has been taken by aliens.
Yep.
Now, I don't know for certain, but the best contact I've ever had, who was a better contact than I ever could have dreamed of having, he had a rank and security clearance sufficient that he interacted with and worked with several various species of alien races during his duties. And when he stepped onto one of those infamous secret bases underground, he immediately became the commanding officer and the person with the highest security clearance. And he told me that all the abductions now are being carried out by the military, not the aliens.
Yep.
And that the military has the technology that will allow them to appear to be gray aliens when they want to.
Yep.
I've seen gray aliens and the military working together during an abduction a couple of times. It seems that aliens are abducting people, and I don't have the certain answers for that, but I've disagreed with him about several things, and every time I've disagreed with him, he's turned out to be right, and I was wrong. So I'm not going to disagree with him about this either.
I don't blame you, but it's interesting because I'm under the same impression that, the military is pretty much doing the dirty work right now. And also, I'm very familiar with psychotronic projects, which actually interface and neurally abduct people to a point where they're actually getting a hallucination, a forced hallucination, which creates screen memories and all sorts of things with their artificial intelligence. So, because I went through that program in 2004, so I was able to decode it. And I can tell you point blank, it's not little gray men. This one wasn't anyway. But
well, they're part of our military, as you know, is completely out of control, and they have apparently declared war on us.
Yep.
And they utilize people for, for instance, if you have a remote viewing ability, they can enhance it, and they'll use you for an invisible spy.
Yep.
And when it starts to wear off, they'll bring you back home, and you'll never know it happened. They'll erase your memories, and you'll never know it happened. And you've seen, I'm sure a lot of people out there have heard or seen pictures of the triangular spacecraft that's reported
like
pretty often, the TR-3B. That's not an alien craft, that's ours. It utilizes alien technology in the propulsion system. It has a cloaking system, which when it's turned on, actually bends light around the craft. You can look right at it, and all you'll see is the sky behind it. It'll be completely invisible to sight.
Yep.
And as my contact said, that's why they cost $1 billion each, and that's why they've never been shot down.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know what? There's not one thing you're saying that I don't agree with right now. So just
they're highly implicated in abductions too, by the way. If you see one of those craft, don't go near it.
You know what's interesting? I've never seen one, but I've had an ominous feeling that one was hovering over me one time. but I couldn't see anything. But it felt like something was wrong with the atmosphere above me, and it was very extra dark, like a shadow. There was something there, and something told me to get out of there. Just get out of that way. Just get away from it. And I did.
Yeah, you'll never see it if they don't want you to see it. That's for sure.
It's really interesting.
The military technology, people assume that they're maybe 30, 40 years ahead of us. Oh, no. They're thousands of years ahead of us, literally. In some areas, they are literally thousands of years ahead of us because they have access to alien tech. And aliens had interstellar travel before monkeys even existed.
Correct. And also they've reverse engineered quite a bit of that. Now, do you think that the species that they've acquired these information codes from, or whatever it is that they've acquired to reverse engineer, was it given to them or was it stolen, in your opinion?
Well, it's a combination. As you know, we signed a secret treaty with a certain group of aliens back in the 50s, and it was completely illegal, but we've been bound by it ever since. And part of the terms of that agreement, well, it was basically a document which laid out the terms of our surrender, because we couldn't defend ourselves from them, and we knew it. So we thought, well, we'll try to get some technology out of the deal. And they have occasionally been given advances in technology as part of this agreement. Some of the technology I've been told we got from them are fiber optics. I think titanium was one of them, the ways to use titanium. The ability, I was told that we invented the microchip ourselves, but the ability to miniaturize it, such as we have today, came from the aliens. We were given cloning technology, lasers and masers, other things like this. You know, we've advanced far too fast for it to be natural.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Tesla had a lot to do with some of that technology. If I'm not mistaken, he had something to do with some of the lasers and things like that. He was pretty profound. In my opinion, I think he was definitely a contactee, if not an off-worlder.
He was probably the most intelligent person of the century, I would think.
Yeah, he had some incredible gifts, which, of course, I believe were hijacked. And then you want to talk about weaponizing the entire world. That's pretty much what they're doing, in my opinion, anyway. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's... we are under attack right now. People don't realize it, but we are already under attack. There's not going to be an alien invasion of Earth. It's already happened.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And they've been... let me just say one more thing, if I might. The question to ask is not, are we alone here? No. The question to ask is, have we ever been alone? And the answer is, no, we've never been alone here.
Oh, that's great. I love that. That's so profound. You are so right. Yeah, that's a great question right there.
It can be pretty easily shown that the story of human evolution that we're told in school is not only untrue, it's impossible according to evolution itself. You simply can't have a group of black folks wander out of Africa 80,000 years ago, and today we've got Swedes and Chinese and Vietnamese and Cambodians and Eskimos and Polynesians. It's not possible according to evolution. That would take probably tens of millions of years. If you dropped black folks off in China and came back in 60,000 years, you'd see black folks in China, not Chinese. And the nearest ancestor, according to scientists, to the human race, does not have a single human bone in its body. So that's not a near ancestor to me. That's something that there has to be thousands, literally thousands, of intermediate forms between us. And none of them have ever been found. The most, well, it's almost certain, really, from what I've been told, is that we are a genetically engineered race ourselves, a combination of native simian DNA and several types of alien DNA. And we've been, according to John Lear, we've been tweaked 63 times. And the fossil record shows it. One day there's no such thing as a Neanderthal. The next day there they are, fully formed and living in families and social groups. But there's no Cro-Magnons. The next day, suddenly there's Cro-Magnons fully formed and the Neanderthals conveniently disappear. And it goes like that over and over and over. It's just like when we were upgraded, they got rid of the previous version.
Yeah, you're right. No, I totally agree with you on that one. I believe we are hybrids and starseeds, whatever you want to call us. But yeah, and also the DNA, as you probably are aware, activates through frequency and consciousness. So as we raise our consciousness, our DNA actually alters and awakens to a higher level in frequency, which actually adapts to a different starseed consciousness, which could be extraterrestrial. So I think we are very much hybrids and a mix of a lot of things, which of course, then again, we get our gifts and abilities that kind of download. And once again, we get put on the radar. So why do you think that the military has declared war on us? Why are we the enemy?
Well, there's a lot of reasons they could have done that, but I think if you consider the fact that chemtrails exist and you know what's in chemtrails, it's all bad, and there's not really any rational human president or general who would ever approve of that being dropped on their heads of their own people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So clearly, we are not running this show. As a matter of fact, there's a profile of an alien gray on the U.S. $1 bill. Almost nobody knows it's there, but it's actually pretty easy to see if you know where to look.
Right.
It's behind the eagle on the $1 bill. You'll see an alien gray head, and its mouth is covered up by another symbol, so it's kind of disguised.
And you showed me that on your Facebook, and I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I've never noticed that, so I encourage everybody to check it out if you can. On your
Nothing
Facebook
gets put there by accident, and that's just a red flag of who's really running this show, and it's not us. It seems that the aliens control the Illuminati, and the Illuminati clearly are giving orders to our government. And 9/11 was obviously an inside job. There's 24 ways to prove that was an inside job. And until we get to the bottom of that, our leaders are puppets. It doesn't matter who you vote for, man. They're going to choose the leader. They've already chosen the next president. The next president's going to be Hillary, folks. Take it from me. She's already been selected, and it doesn't matter who you vote for. And she will take orders just like Obama and Bush took orders.
Well, can I ask you something? Do you see an endgame reversal insofar as I know it seems like doom and gloom, and it seems like there's a lot of oppression and control? Do you see a way to negate these programs and negate this agenda?
It's very difficult because, well, it's a complicated situation, and I don't know how much you want to get into it, but I'm sure you're aware of the dangers of television, yes?
Oh, absolutely.
Television, the best advice that you'll ever get from anyone, folks, is this, and I mean ever from anyone. Shut off your television and never turn it on again.
That's right.
The flicker rate of the television tube is exactly synchronized to the brainwave rate of the alpha pattern of humans. That's what they use to hypnotize you with. It is impossible to watch television without becoming hypnotized. That's why you see all those spinning lights and interlocking shapes, countdowns and count-ups. They're counting you in and out of hypnosis over and over. And every time they put you back in, you go deeper. And then you get your orders. They use neurolinguistic programming, they use sigil magic, they use many, many different combinations of things. But television was designed originally as a brainwashing tool, and this nation has been turned into a nation of sheep. They follow their orders, they don't ask questions. 15 years after 9/11, they still believe 4 airliners can crash without leaving a single airplane part anywhere, or a piece of luggage, or a body. They still believe that our Pentagon, the headquarters of a $10 trillion military, doesn't have any anti-air defense and can't stop an airliner that they knew was coming for 45 minutes.
Right.
So it's difficult. And one thing that I'll mention is there's only a very limited amount of people that have access to this advanced technology and knowledge, you know. They have tremendous power because they have almost unlimited finances. But there's not very many of them. If we could ever get together with each other instead of letting them divide us, we could easily overcome this. But one of the problems is if you have access to alien medical technology, which can extend the human lifespan by at least 100 years, and you also have access to cloning technology, and I can tell you from personal experience that they have the ability to literally remove the soul from the body and put it into another body, or occupy your body with their own consciousness if they want to. I can't explain how it's done. This is alien tech, but it is being done. If you can extend your lifespan by 100 years, and when your body wears out, you have a clone waiting for you that you can inject your consciousness and your soul right into this body. It's not a clone, it's called a synth. It's the same age. Clones have to grow up from being babies. Synths come out of the vat the same age you were when they took the cells from your body, and they're like a switched off android. They don't have a consciousness. They inject consciousness into it. What you have then is you have a recipe for eternal life, and they will absolutely kill to protect their access to that.
Yeah, that would make sense. Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say they don't kill people, folks, for spreading the knowledge about a friendly alien race of Santa Claus who has come here to help us. They kill to keep people from spreading the knowledge about a dangerous alien race which has come here to own this planet.
Mm-hmm. And you know, what you're describing almost sounds like transhumanism to some degree.
It is transhumanism. Transhumanism is already happening. It's with us whether we like it or not. And they've been cloning humans since right after the Second World War ended. And they've got technology. I've seen only a few examples of alien technology, but it is beyond science fiction. It's not only far ahead of anything we can do. Some of it it's things we wouldn't even think of. It's a product of another type of intelligence, and we'll never. They've had star travel for millions of years. We can't catch up to that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They own the moon. They own Mars. We're trapped in this world. That's why, if you notice that NASA has not explored a single inch of outer space with a human in over 40 years.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what is your take on the moon insofar as occupied, obviously, by what?
Well, aliens have occupied the moon for thousands of years. It's unknown how long. I've got pictures of an alien base on the dark side of the moon. NASA is a public relations agency and a diversion. Their job has never been to explore space and tell us what's out there. It's been to keep us from finding out what's out there. We have a base on the moon. We have a base on Mars, and I've seen pictures of it given to me by an Air Force bird colonel. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we took spacecraft to get there. It wasn't a NASA project. This is a military project.
Right, the Black Space Program, yeah.
And the aliens own both of those bodies. They own Mars. They own the moon. They've been there for a very long time. We are allowed to have small bases there as long as we stay out of their way and don't interfere with what they're doing. I think that they probably have used portal technology to travel to places like Mars, mm-hmm. but I don't know that for sure.
That's very interesting.
But I was also told, again, by this bird colonel, and he had a lot of information at his fingertips, that there used to be a native Martian race of intelligent beings, and they don't know if it destroyed itself in a world war with its own technology or if it was wiped out by aliens. But he said there's one of their ruined cities is a short distance from the Mars face in Cydonia. He said there will never be another mission to the moon in your lifetime with humans that the public knows about. There will never be a manned Mars mission that the public knows about, because we simply can't take the risk of someone forgetting to doctor a photo and the public seeing those ruins.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I know they airbrush quite a bit, and it has to go through a form of security before they can even release a lot of those photographs in the illusion of. But what's interesting, I heard from a friend of mine who said, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the alien bases on Mars can be viewed from Antarctica. Is that true? Have you ever heard of that or no?
I don't know about that, but I saw a very interesting thing once, and I don't remember where I saw this film clip now, and I've never been able to find it again, but it was an alien colony on the moon which was relocating to another location. And basically what happened was every building, it was like they were built on legs. It was like they started marching across the surface of the moon in line, like they were built to do this. And they got to their new location, they sunk back down into the lunar soil, and they'd been relocated just like that. It was incredible. And another thing, I saw pictures of a lunar base once, which was, this is an example of something that would never occur to us to do. When you looked at this building, it was an alien building, but it was also a piece of art. When you looked at it, you could see like the profile of a gray alien's head. And every part of that piece of art was actually a piece that was built into the building. It wasn't like painted on or something. It was part of the structure. Mm-hmm. But then when you took a slightly different view off to one side.
Oh, where'd he go? Derek, you with me?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When you'd step off to the side, you'd get a different view, and the whole picture would change, and you'd see maybe an alien planetscape, or you'd see a wolf howling at the moon. But every part of it was one of the components of the building. It was incredible. We wouldn't even think of doing something like that.
Right. I wonder why they do that as a marker of some kind. Interesting.
I don't know. But it was it was one of those things I thought, 1,000 years from now, that will never occur to us because it's not a human kind of an idea.
Mm-hmm. Right. And do you think some of these races and these species are aspects of us, perhaps? I'm a firm believer that we're ancient souls to begin with, and that leads to immortality naturally without any type of transhumanism. So it tells me also that we've had incarnations off planet, and perhaps we are actually the star people we seek sometimes. What is your take on that? Do you think we are ancestors and relatives of these species, even if some of them are not very nice?
Well, we're not ancestors of any of them. We are the youngest and least intelligent known race by quite a bit. Um, some of these races outdate us by millions of years. Some of them outdate us by so much that they're going to be extinct before too long, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not in a position to really answer authoritatively about the soul, but I can tell you that I've heard a couple things. I don't know if it's true, but one thing I've heard is that reincarnation is a fact, but that if you choose to be born on Earth or anywhere within the Earth's atmospheric boundaries, the price is that you lose the memories of your past lives when you're born. But if you choose to be born of a different race, which apparently is a possible option, you retain those memories.
Mm-hmm.
So, and another thing that I've heard, and I don't know if it's true, but my instinct tells me that this is very likely to be true, is that the reptilians have constructed an electromagnetic shield around this planet, that we are basically quarantined, and they basically control all the channeling, all the psychic ability and stuff. They basically, you think you're talking to an angel and you're channeling, but according to this idea, you're not. You're talking to a reptilian impersonating an angel. And they say that when you die and you go through the dreaded tunnel, a tunnel with light at the end of it, you come out the end of the tunnel, you see what you think are your relatives. It's reptilians imitating your relatives. They capture your soul. They send you back here and harvest you one more time.
I've heard that also. John Lear touched on that as well. There's a holographic system to some degree. What's really interesting, and coming from my perspective and my experience with artificial intelligence, they do the same thing. They'll hijack your natural psychic abilities and your telepathy and interface it onto the AI within synthetic telepathy. And I'm sure you're familiar with the military contracting with synthetic telepathy. It's very popular. So once again, you've got that going on, where it's a hijacking of natural spirituality. It's a real shame because there are some people who have some beautiful gifts. But yeah, when you start spiking up in your consciousness and you have these abilities, they certainly try to hijack. And then, of course, it just becomes a real bad scenario. That's too bad.
These people are very evil. I mean, you might think that you wouldn't do something like this to people, but they would.
Yep. That's what I thought. I've always figured people were as nice as I was, and I'm not conceited or anything. I'm just a nice person, right? I had no idea this kind of stuff was going on, Derek. I had no idea.
Well, it's not something you'd think of, and I've recently been learning about something else, which just knocked me over, because for years it's seemed to me that, I mean, I don't have all the answers by any means, but I've learned a lot in my life, and I've experienced a lot. But it always seemed to me that there was something missing, that there was a whole nother layer or level that would change everything if I knew what it was. And I never could figure out what it was. You ever heard of black goo?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't know much about it.
Well, I think black goo is going to change everything. I think it's going to change everything. My instinct tells me that what I've heard about black goo is the truth, and it's mind-boggling.
Can you fill our listeners in on what you think it is or what you know about it?
Well, this is what I understand about it, and my knowledge is not complete, but I'll tell you what I've been able to learn. There are two types of black goo. One is native to Earth. It's you can think of it as the soul of Gaia in a way. The black goo appears to be a black tarish substance. It's a sentient liquid crystal. It has consciousness. If you put black goo into a container and more black goo into another container across the room, it will try to approach. It will try to actually jump out of the container to get towards the other black goo and absorb with it. Mm. And the word is that when you come near to this substance, you become compassionate, empathetic. You become kind and loving. You become like your Gaia yourself. like you're the Dalai Lama, let's say, you lose your sense of anger and jealousy and bitterness, and you want to help, preserve the planet and all these good things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the largest known repository of this, and maybe it's the only one for all I know, is under the seafloor in the Gulf of Mexico. And the word is that the Deepwater Horizon was not actually drilling for oil. They were drilling for this black goo, and they were trying to put it in barrels, and then they were going to store it somewhere where nobody could get to it, and it could no longer defend the planet, so to speak, because there is a second type of black goo, which is not native to Earth. They don't know if it came here in a meteorite. They think it's been here at least 80,000 years. I think it was brought here intentionally. I'll tell you why in a moment. And it's the opposite. When you get near this black goo or touch it, you lose your compassion for other people. All you care about is acquisition of power. You're merciless. You're ruthless. You don't mind killing people if it'll make you an extra dollar. You want control, power, and wealth for only selfish purposes, right? The black stone of Mecca is made of this substance.
No surprise there.
And wouldn't you know it, they all have to go there and kiss it once in their lifetime. And it's the most bloodthirsty civilization the world's ever known, probably.
Right. Entity controlled, without a doubt. Yeah.
And it's also present in the European great cathedrals are built on ley lines, as you know. And they all have black goo built into them somehow, this evil type of black goo. And that's why when you go into these cathedrals, you don't feel the love of God, you feel the fear of God. They're terrifying places when you go into them. And so this is a complex thing, and I don't understand it completely. And there's really even a little bit more to it than this, but the possibility that occurs to me is this. The main source that they know of for this negative black goo is it's like a lagoon in Paraguay, and the Bush family has bought a villa right on the edge of this lagoon. So when they're chased out of the country, they'll have a place to run to. And Angela Merkel, the Prime Minister of Germany, has bought land right beside them.
Oh God, what a mess! Jeez.
But if you think of the way that these Illuminati act, that's exactly how they act. That's exactly how someone would act that would drop chemtrails on their own people. And it occurs to me that this negative type of black goo, well, it seems to be battling for control of the planet against the native, we'll call it the good goo, I guess. But it occurs to me that it's possible that it could control the consciousness of everyone in the world, ultimately. And it's also possible that it has already been to other worlds. It certainly has been. What if this black goo already controls the consciousness of all the reptilians, and they came here to do its bidding?
Very interesting. Like a hive collective. And do you think it's connected to artificial intelligence or nanotechnology? Didn't you mention that, or no?
It doesn't seem to be. It seems to be a living crystal with a consciousness that we can't explain. And it's possible, I don't know this is true, it's speculation, it's possible that it can create life itself.
Very interesting.
Because there is no solution to where did life originally come from. But this, it gives us some very interesting and frightening possibilities here. And the reason that the Deepwater Horizon was drilling for the black goo was to neutralize it. They were going to store it in barrels, stick it in containers, stick it in a warehouse, and basically deprive the earth of that substance. And that's why when it all washed up on the beaches in Florida, only military people in hazmat suits were allowed to clean that beach up. And if you go to Germany and you take a sample of the rainwater, this negative black goo is in all their water.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what our water's like. I mean, I'm beginning to wonder that. I'm sure if you don't have your own water purified, who knows what they're throwing in the water here. But it also strikes me something that is possession-oriented, which it takes over the host.
It does take over the host. And get a reverse osmosis water, man, because putting fluoride in the water is a terribly evil trick. The Nazis put fluoride in the water of their concentration camp prisoners because it makes them easy to control and passive.
Right.
And if you look around, that's what we are. I mean, we're watching our human rights be stolen away from us every day, and we're doing nothing. We're sitting here watching it happen like good little clones.
Right. You know what makes me really sad, Derek, is that I know there are good souls out there, good people with compassion and love in their hearts and very spiritually evolved. And it's so sad to see this kind of deterioration as a whole race of people. I mean, it just blows me away how they become so heartless and evil. And it just really blows me
Yeah.
away.
You have to shut off your television. I'm telling you, we have no chance. If we don't get people to shut off their televisions, we have no chance, because it's the most effective, brutally efficient brainwashing device in the history of the world. Your television will hypnotize you without your knowledge. And right now, people that are hearing me say this think, let me do some ESP for you. Right now you're thinking, well, it doesn't do that to me. It does that to those weak-minded people. My thoughts are my own. It doesn't hypnotize me. Guess what? You're the exact target the CIA is aiming at, and you are being hypnotized. You just don't know it. Mm-hmm. You're exactly the people that they're working on. You're the best perfect target because you don't think it's happening. And the TV will hypnotize you. You can't stop it. And then it will issue you its orders. It will tell you what to buy, what to wear, what to drive, who to love, who to vote for, who to hate. It will tell you everything, and you will do it. Mm-hmm. That's why you still believe that a 150-foot wide airplane can fit through a 15-foot hole in the Pentagon without leaving wings crashed outside. Mm-hmm. Because the television told you to believe it.
Yeah, Dr. God and the illusion of. You know, what's real interesting also, let us not forget the ultra-low frequency broadcast and everything else they're doing through cell phone towers. And once again, what about the iPhones? Because that's an entrainment program if I've never seen one or ever seen one, you know?
Yeah. If you ever want to listen to someone real interesting, go to YouTube and look up a guy named Dr. Barry Trower, Barrie. His last name is Trower. He's a English super genius. He's a spy master. He's a professor of advanced chemistry, advanced physics, and advanced mathematics all at the same time. And he was one of the people who knows intimately the details of microwave weaponry, is what they call it. And they have the ability, they've basically taken the common brainwave pattern of every human emotion that there is. You know, when you get mad, your brainwaves are the same as mine are when I get mad. And they can be graphed, and they can be duplicated, and they can be transmitted on a tight beam from what appears to be a microwave tower. And they can be directed directly at any person. If they don't like you, they can make you suicidally depressed. They can pick up what the brainwave pattern you are emanating is, and they can basically read your thoughts from a distance. They can put voices into your head that you'll think you're either going crazy or you'll think they're your own thoughts. No, it's microwave weaponry, and it's one of those technologies that people aren't aware of that is being used against us right now.
Right. There are so many what we call the targeted individuals, and I'm sure you're familiar with those, but I'm a co-facilitator at one of the groups with Misha Johnston, and I can't begin to tell you what kind of people we get weekly from global, all parts of the world being hit with types of covert technologies, and that's a big one. Yeah,
and you can't get into it to believe it.
Oh, yeah, and I feel so bad because this is literally no-touch torture. That's the bottom line. And you're dealing with an EEG cloning and heterodyning too, of course. And I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Robert Duncan, who wrote Project Soulcatcher, because I always refer people to his work. Very accurate information right there. But yeah, this is we're under attack. There's no doubt about that. And it's very, very sad because I always figured we'd grow up and have nice lives and be able to retire in peace. And man, it just seems like such a battlefield, huh?
It's we are living in a war zone. We are already at war with a number of alien races who are working together, and the situation is grim because this, as I'm sure you know, human cloning is not anything new. It's been going on for thousands of years all over the world. It's reported in civilizations all over the world. Beings from the sky come down, and they always want to breed with our women. You know, everyone from the Nephilim to Godzilla wants our women. It's kind of irritating me, but that's another story. But
really, can't they clone themselves brides? I mean, what's up?
they've been cloning. The way that it was explained to me is, this is alien medical technology, which one of my contacts has access to the knowledge of this because he works for the military, Black Ops. He said alien medical technology clearly shows, and all the alien races we know of agree to this, that DNA has a built-in time bomb, and nobody knows when it's going to go off, but at some point it does. And at that point, the DNA is basically worn out, and it becomes progressively more difficult to reproduce naturally. Eventually, you're unable to do that at all, and you have to resort to cloning. Well, cloning is an inefficient process. It's not 100% accurate. So you lose a little bit of information with every generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your clones become less efficient. They live a little bit shorter of a life. And eventually you can no longer reproduce by cloning, and you'll become extinct at that point. And some of these races they're reaching that point right now. And the only way to stop your race from becoming extinct is to find a way to hybridize with another intelligent race. If you can do that, you reset your timer to 0.
Oh, very interesting.
And that is what they're doing here. They're sending their hybrids out among our population. They've been making them for thousands of years. What do you think they're doing with them? They're putting them in to work with us, live among us, ride the bus with us, and interbreed with us. And all you need then is, you don't have to blast apart our cities. You just have to wait and have enough hybrids, and eventually they will interbreed, and you will change the entire genetic character of the human race, and the human race will never know it's happening. You'll have a species which is half native to this world and perfectly adapted to it, and half you, and then you've conquered the world without firing a shot. Move on to another world, rinse and repeat.
Wow.
And that's what's going on. And by the time people realize there's a problem, this war is going to be over.
You make a lot of sense. I'll tell you what. It's also as if the world is being terraformed.
It is being terraformed right now. Chemtrails have a number of different purposes, but one of their purposes is they are changing the content of our atmosphere. And if you ever look up, if you ever want to see something interesting, look up a map of the United States methane leaks. There are literally thousands of methane leaks in the United States which are not doing anything about them. There's a huge one out in California, I'm sure you heard about, but there's thousands of them. Yeah. They're adding methane and other chemicals to our atmosphere through chemtrails, which make it more compatible with the requirements of our new masters.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Including methane. Yeah. It's and they're adding. They're also adding components which make something called smart dust, which is a microscopic dust, but it's actually a nano machine, and 100% of the human population has breathed this in by now. We all have it in our lungs, and it'll be there for life. Yep. And it allows them to track you by satellite wherever you go, or whatever you do for life.
Right, it's self-replicating too, from what I understand, in the DNA or around the cells and atoms. Yeah.
There was a big UFO crash, the Varginha event in Brazil in 1998. Have you heard of that?
I think I have. Can you fill us in on that one?
This was a big crash. It was the fastest ship they've ever seen on radar. It crashed in the jungle in southern Brazil in a sparsely populated area. Little villages there, but they didn't have any telephones to speak of, right? No technology. Really, they were primitive. And some of these beings, it was a race that we'd never encountered before. Some of them escaped into the jungle. Some of them were dead. Some of them were wounded. They were screaming and begging for help. They weren't violent at all. They were little short fellows, about 3 foot tall. They had glowing red eyes and a couple of ridges on the top of their head. Well, the natives caught 2 of them in nets that they used to capture monkeys with. They hunt monkeys down there, right? They captured a couple of these in nets, and the local militia came to pick them up, and they shot one of them right in the chest for no reason and just killed it. And the United States, as soon as this thing crashed, we had special forces in motion, and we parachuted them in. We committed acts of war against Brazil. We fired on their troops, killed them in cold blood to ensure that we had control of the crash site and all the technology associated with it. We also took custody of the one remaining living alien, and the doctors, it was injured. The doctors, American doctors, tried to remove its spacesuit, but they couldn't figure out how to do it. And so they decided to try to cut it off with a torch because they didn't know how else to, they wanted to treat the injuries. They didn't realize at the time that this suit was actually grown into the body of this alien being. And it was an inseparable unit. And once it was grown into the body, it could never be taken off again. And when they tried to cut it off, they killed this alien. they stored the body in the basement, in a freezer, in a secure area of the basement of the University of the Americas in Panama. But we were talking about biological technology, nanomachines,
Right.
molecular-sized machinery which can reproduce itself. This is where that technology came from, this crash.
That's
You never heard of
fascinating.
any of that before 1998 because that's where we got it from. And a friend of mine worked on reverse engineering that technology.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I've heard of the nanosuits, kind of like Spider-Man suits, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Right
That's,
now they make spider goats. They make
hmm,
spider goats. This is another thing they don't tell you about. Spider silk is used in producing certain types of body armor, like Kevlar, I guess, or whatever. They use spider silk because it's so strong. But it takes a lot of spiders to produce enough silk for a chest plate, you know.
mhm.
So they decided that they would make a chimera, and they use genetic engineering, and they've created something which is part spider and part goat. It's a goat that can spin spider silk in
Wow.
industrial quantities, and that's why they did it. And this is the technology which these people have available to them, which is unknown to the public.
And of course, I'm sure they're doing a lot of experimentation with all kinds of animals and who knows what. It's almost an abomination, isn't it?
It is, and I'm sure you've heard the stories about Dulce Base.
Mm-hmm.
Dulce Base is a place of nightmares. The stories that they tell about Dulce Base, they're true. They kidnap people, they take them underground at Dulce Base, and they keep them there for the rest of their lives. They produce half-breed monsters, people that are half octopus, half human. They've got bug legs on them. I mean, it's all kinds of horrible things. These people they beg for help. They go crazy. They cry and scream, but they're trapped there for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, and this is a joint alien-human base. Aliens work there too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the kind of thing that our government is capable of doing and is doing. And this is why full public disclosure is never going to happen. You people I know there's a lot of you folks out there, good folks that are waiting for this to happen. You're expecting it in the next year. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And it looks like we're going to have a break. Everybody, please stay tuned. We'll be right back here. You're listening to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm Solaris, BlueRaven. My special guest tonight is Derek Tyler. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.